Ask him these 5 questions before sleeping together. Women after 60 must watch. Linda sat across from Thomas at dinner, feeling the unmistakable pull of attraction and connection they'd been building over 3 months of dating. At 65, she knew exactly where this evening was heading. The chemistry was undeniable, the timing felt right, and every signal suggested they'd end up in bed together before the night was over. But Linda did something that most women skip entirely. Before dessert arrived, she looked at Thomas directly and said, "I need to ask you something before we take this further tonight. What are your expectations about exclusivity if we sleep together?" Thomas blinked, clearly not expecting the direct question. But his answer, and the conversation that followed, told Linda everything she needed to know about whether this man was worth being intimate with, or whether she was about to make a mistake that would cost her emotional energy she couldn't afford to waste. Here's what women over 60 need to understand. Physical intimacy after 60 carries different stakes than it did when you were younger. You're not just risking pregnancy or casual heartbreak. You're investing limited time, emotional bandwidth, and vulnerability in a stage of life where those resources are precious. And the 5 questions you ask before sleeping with someone will reveal whether he's worth that investment or whether you're about to give yourself to someone who sees you as temporary entertainment. Subscribe right now because we're about to have the conversation most women are too afraid to have. We're going to talk about the specific questions that separate men who are genuinely invested from men who are using attractive words to get what they want. These aren't awkward mood killers. These are protective intelligence gathering that saves you from wasting months or years on someone who was never serious about you.
Question 1. What are your expectations about exclusivity if we become intimate? Notice the framing. Not, "Are we exclusive?" which he can dodge. Not, "What are we?" which sounds needy. But specifically, what are your expectations about exclusivity if we sleep together? This question accomplishes several things simultaneously. It establishes that you're a woman who connects sex with relationship context, not someone who does casual hookups and hopes they turn into more. It reveals whether he's thought about what sleeping together means, or whether he's just following his physical desire without considering implications. And most importantly, it forces him to state his expectations explicitly before he has access to your body. Margaret was 67 when she asked this question to Robert before their first intimate encounter. His immediate response was, "I assumed we'd be exclusive once we slept together. That's what intimacy means to me at this point in my life. I'm not interested in dating multiple people." That answer told Margaret several things. Robert had thought about this already. He connected intimacy with commitment. He was willing to state his expectations clearly without hedging. 3 years later, they're still together, and Margaret credits that early conversation with setting a foundation of honesty. But contrast that with what happened to Dorothy when she asked Michael the same question. Michael's response was, "Well, I'm not seeing anyone else right now, but I also think we should just see where things go naturally without putting pressure on it, you know?" Dorothy heard what Michael was actually saying. He wasn't willing to commit to exclusivity, he wanted to keep his options open, and he was framing his lack of commitment as being natural and pressure-free, when really, he was protecting his ability to continue exploring other possibilities while having access to her. Dorothy made the difficult choice to delay intimacy until Michael was ready to have a clearer conversation about expectations. 3 weeks later, Michael admitted he was still actively using dating apps and wasn't ready to be exclusive with anyone. Dorothy had saved herself from becoming physically and emotionally invested in someone who was never planning to prioritize her. Dr. Helen Fisher, biological anthropologist who studies love and attachment, explains that women produce more oxytocin during sex than men, which creates stronger emotional bonding. When you sleep with someone, your brain chemistry is literally working to attach you to that person. If he's not on the same page about what intimacy means, you're creating a biological attachment to someone who remains emotionally detached, and that asymmetry will hurt you. The right man will answer this question clearly and without defensiveness. He might say, "I want to be exclusive with you," or "I'd like us to stop seeing other people once we're intimate," or "Sex means commitment to me." The wrong man will dodge, deflect, talk about not wanting to rush things, or frame commitment as pressure. His evasiveness is your answer.
Question 2. How do you handle conflict in intimate relationships? This question seems unrelated to the immediate decision about sleeping together, but it's actually one of the most predictive questions you can ask. How a man handles conflict tells you whether intimacy with him will be safe or whether you're about to give yourself to someone who will hurt you repeatedly and never take accountability. Patricia was 64 when she asked David this question over wine before they went to bed together for the first time. David's answer was thoughtful. "I used to shut down and give the silent treatment, honestly. My ex-wife hated it, but I've been in therapy for a few years now, and I've learned that I need to communicate even when I'm uncomfortable. I'm not perfect at it, but I try to address issues within a day rather than letting them fester." That answer told Patricia that David had self-awareness about his patterns, had done work to improve them, and understood that conflict resolution was his responsibility, not something that happened automatically. 5 years later, Patricia says that David's commitment to working through disagreements quickly has been one of the foundations of their relationship. Compare that to what happened to Carol when she asked Kenneth the same question. Kenneth laughed and said, "Oh, I just avoid drama entirely. Life's too short to fight about stupid stuff. I just let things roll off my back." That sounded positive initially, but Carol probed deeper. "But what happens when there's a legitimate issue that needs to be addressed?" Kenneth shrugged. "I mean, if someone's that upset about something, they're probably being overdramatic. I just give them space to calm down." What Kenneth was actually saying, he didn't take women's concerns seriously, he labeled legitimate needs as drama, and his conflict resolution strategy was dismissal and avoidance. Carol slept with him anyway, hoping his attitude would be different with her. 6 months later, she'd learned the hard way that Kenneth's pattern never changed. Every time she tried to address something that bothered her, he'd minimize her feelings, tell her she was overreacting, and create distance until she gave up trying to communicate. Dr. John Gottman's research shows that conflict resolution style is one of the strongest predictors of relationship success. The specific pattern that predicts failure? Stonewalling, where one partner shuts down and refuses to engage. When a man tells you he avoids drama or doesn't do conflict, he's telling you that he will stonewall you when issues arise, and you'll be left with the choice of accepting mistreatment or ending the relationship. The right man will acknowledge that conflict happens, will have some strategy for addressing it, and will take responsibility for his role in resolution. He might say, "I try to take a break when I'm too heated, but I always come back to finish the conversation." Or, "I've learned I need to really listen instead of just defending myself." Or, "I know I tend to get defensive, but I'm working on it." The wrong man will frame all conflict as unnecessary drama. Will talk about how his ex was crazy, will suggest that healthy relationships don't have disagreements, or will make it clear that he expects you to manage all emotional labor while he remains comfortable. Don't sleep with that man. You're signing up for a relationship where your needs will be consistently ignored. Question 3. What does physical intimacy mean to you at this stage of your life? This open-ended question reveals whether he's thought about sex as an adult with life experience, or whether he's still operating from a younger man's mindset about physical connection being separate from emotional connection.
Helen was 66 when she asked Richard this question. His response stayed with her. "Honestly, it means a lot more now than it did when I was younger. I can't just sleep with someone without caring about them. The physical part doesn't work for me anymore unless there's real emotional connection. So, for me, being intimate with you would mean I'm invested in building something real with you." That answer told Helen that Richard understood his own psychology, connected intimacy with emotional investment, and was clear that sleeping with her was a statement of intention, not just physical gratification. They'd been together for 4 years, and Helen says the emotional depth of their physical connection is something she never experienced in her marriage. But contrast that with what happened to Ruth when she asked James the same question. James said, "I think at our age we should just enjoy the physical pleasure without overthinking it. We're old enough to separate sex from all the emotional complications, you know? Just two adults enjoying each other." What James was actually saying, he wanted the physical benefits of intimacy without any emotional responsibility. And he was framing emotional connection as complications and overthinking, rather than as a natural component of mature sexuality. Ruth slept with James anyway. 3 months later, she was emotionally attached, while James remained casually interested, seeing her when convenient, but never integrating her into his life in any meaningful way. When Ruth finally asked where the relationship was going, James reminded her that he'd been clear from the beginning. He wasn't looking for complications. Dr. Esther Perel, relationship therapist, writes about how mature sexuality requires integration of emotional and physical intimacy. Men who want to separate the two after 60 are often men who want the benefits of connection without the accountability of relationship. They're not evolved beyond emotional connection. They're avoiding it because it would require them to show up consistently and prioritize someone other than themselves. The right man will connect physical intimacy with emotional meaning. He might say, "It means trust and vulnerability for me," or, "At this point, I only want to be intimate with someone I really care about," or, "Physical connection is how I express deeper feelings." The wrong man will talk about keeping things casual, not overthinking things, just enjoying the physical pleasure or separating sex from emotion. He's telling you that he wants access to your body without responsibility to your heart. Believe him.
Question 4. Are you still actively dating other people? This seems like it overlaps with the exclusivity question, but it's different. The exclusivity question is about future expectations. This question is about current behavior. And the difference in those answers can reveal whether you're dealing with an honest man or a manipulative one. Linda asked Thomas both questions before they slept together. When she asked about exclusivity, he said he expected to be exclusive once they were intimate. When she asked if he was currently dating others, he said, "Well, yeah, we haven't slept together yet, so I'm still keeping my options open. But that'll change once we're intimate." Linda heard the inconsistency. If Martin genuinely saw her as someone he wanted to be exclusive with, he'd already be pulling back from other options. Instead, he was actively pursuing other women while telling Barbara that sleeping with her would change his behavior. That's a man who's telling you what you want to hear to get access to you, but whose actual behavior reveals he's not there yet. Barbara chose not to sleep with Martin that night. She told him she wanted to wait until he was ready to be exclusive first, not after. Martin was frustrated and argued that her request was unreasonable. 2 weeks later, Barbara saw Martin's dating profile still active, with updated photos. He'd never had any intention of becoming exclusive. He was simply saying whatever would convince her to sleep with him.
Relationship researcher Dr. Gary Lewandowski explains that the best predictor of future behavior is current behavior, not stated intentions. When a man's current behavior doesn't align with his stated intentions, believe the behavior. A man who's serious about you will already be moving toward exclusivity before sleeping with you, not using intimacy as the starting point for commitment. The right man's current behavior will match his stated intentions. He'll say, "I'm not seeing anyone else," or "I stopped pursuing other connections a few weeks ago," or "I deleted my apps because I want to focus on you." The wrong man will have a disconnect between what he's doing now and what he claims he'll do after sex. He'll talk about keeping options open for now, or about how it's only fair to date others until you sleep together. Don't reward that behavior with intimacy. Make him demonstrate his intentions through his actions first.
Question 5. What are you looking for in a relationship at this point in your life? This final question is the context check. Everything else he's told you needs to fit within the framework of what he's actually looking for. If he's told you he wants exclusivity and emotional connection, but this question reveals he's actually not looking for a serious relationship, you've just caught a fundamental dishonesty. Carol asked Kenneth this question before they slept together. His answer? Honestly, I'm looking for companionship and connection. I'm not interested in getting remarried, but I definitely want a committed, long-term partnership with someone I can travel with and share life with. That answer was consistent with everything else Kenneth had told Carol about wanting exclusivity and emotional connection. His vision of the relationship matched what she was looking for. They slept together, and 2 years later, they're living together in exactly the kind of committed, long-term partnership Kenneth described. But contrast that with what happened to Dorothy when she asked Michael this question. Throughout their dating, Michael had talked about wanting exclusivity, about emotional connection, about how special she was. But when she asked what he was looking for in a relationship, Michael said, "I'm really just taking things one day at a time. I'm not trying to plan too far ahead or put expectations on anything. Just enjoying getting to know someone." Dorothy heard the disconnect. Michael had been talking like someone who wanted commitment, but his actual relationship vision was day-to-day casualness with no forward trajectory. She asked directly, "So you're not looking for a long-term committed relationship?" Michael hesitated. "I mean, I'm open to it if it happens naturally, but I'm also not actively seeking that. I'm just seeing where things go." Dorothy realized that Michael had been performing commitment to get her into bed, but his actual intentions were casual and undefined. She chose not to sleep with him. 3 months later, she learned from a mutual friend that Michael was simultaneously dating and sleeping with 2 other women while telling each of them he was seeing where things go naturally. Dr. Brené Brown writes about the importance of alignment between stated values and lived behavior. When someone tells you they want connection but describes their relationship goals as casual or seeing where things go, there's a fundamental misalignment. They're using relationship language to get relationship benefits while maintaining casual commitment levels. The right man will describe relationship goals that match what he's been showing you. He'll say, "I'm looking for a long-term partner," or "I want a committed relationship," or "I'm hoping to find someone to build a life with." The wrong man will use vague language like seeing where things go, or not putting pressure on anything, or just enjoying the moment. He's deliberately avoiding commitment language while benefiting from your assumption that you're building towards something real. Here's what these 5 questions accomplish together. They create a complete picture of whether this man is emotionally available, honest, and aligned with what you're looking for. They reveal inconsistencies between what he says and what he does. They force him to articulate expectations before he has access to your body and your vulnerability.
And here's the most important part. The right man will not be put off by these questions. He'll appreciate your directness. He'll answer honestly and thoroughly. He'll respect that you're protecting yourself. The wrong man will get defensive, will accuse you of ruining the mood, will suggest you're overthinking things, or will give vague non-answers that leave you more confused than before. Linda, Margaret, Patricia, Carol, Helen, all of these women asked these questions before sleeping with their partners. Some of those conversations revealed green flags that gave them confidence to move forward. Others revealed red flags that saved them from wasting time and emotional energy on men who were never going to give them what they needed. You don't need to ask these questions as an interrogation. Weave them into conversation over dinner or wine. Frame them as, I want to make sure we're on the same page, rather than, I need to vet you. But don't skip them just because you're afraid of killing the mood or seeming too serious. Your body, your heart, and your time are precious. At 60 and beyond, you don't have years to waste figuring out that someone was never serious about you. These 5 questions will tell you in one conversation what might otherwise take months of painful experience to learn. If his answers reveal alignment, honesty, and genuine investment, enjoy the intimacy, knowing you've made an informed choice with a man who deserves access to you. If his answers reveal evasiveness, inconsistency, or casual intentions disguised as relationship interest, walk away before you're emotionally attached to someone who was never going to value you the way you deserve. Leave a comment below about your experience. Have you asked questions like these before becoming intimate? What did you learn? And share this video with women who need to hear that protecting yourself isn't being difficult, it's being wise. You deserve a man who's worth the investment of intimacy. These 5 questions will help you identify him. I'll see you in the next video.